The theme for this month is the unknown. The unknown seems like a really good fit for a month culminated by Halloween and Dios de los Muertos. Ghosts, goblins, zombies, and death. We will have a zombie sermon later in the month, by the way. So the unknown shoulders up against these ghoulish themes, but doesn't pander to them too obviously, I hope. Our aim is to leave enough room in these themes for you to fill in some gaps on your own. But there are some gaps that you're not going to fill in. There are some ideas, some circumstances that you, that I, do not face, even though they are right in front of us and part of the fabric of our daily lives. And with the unknown, there is the added difficulty of even realizing that you do not know something. It's hard to know what you don't know. And worse yet, the failure to do this, a failing we are all most full of, is a recipe for pain, and quite likely dangerous. And it's essentially a guarantee. And here what I'm really talking about in a word is integrity. Psychological, spiritual, ethical integrity. And by integrity, I don't mean only the impeccability of your character, but also, and more importantly, I'm indicating the soundness of your mind and soul, the health of your connection to the interconnected web of existence, the hope for sanity. Of course, personal integrity is entirely integrated with our social, environmental, political, and religious contexts. The interconnected web. And this means that sometimes, if not most times, our integrity is not ours to influence. There are infinite moving parts. And it is nearly impossible. I wrote nearly, I mean it is impossible to keep tabs on all the elements that come to bear on your integrity. And so usually, we ignore them. We relegate them to the unknown. And this means, most often, that we ignore the bits that compromise our integrity. In some ways, we have to. In other ways, we are remiss in doing so. And we ignore these aspects, the ones particularly that create pain. And of course, this almost always backfires. This is what keeps therapists in business. We ignore the planet. We ignore each other. And we ignore ourselves. We live half lives. And this comes with a cost. And maybe ignore is not the exact right word. It's close, but there is a willfulness to this ignorance. And basically, as I said, we're trying to protect ourselves. We know that there is pain in the world, pain in the hearts of our neighbor, and pain in our own hearts. And even worse, we know that we are responsible, at least in part, for much of it. And that we turn from this so instinctively, so resolutely, is ignorance, yes, but it is more. It is denial. So what do we deny, for example? I could lay out some fairly random statistics, and they don't mean anything at the end of the day, not effectively, but that kind of proves the point that I'll make in just a moment. So I will give you some statistics. These are adult, okay? 1 out of every 6 American women have been the victim of an attempted or completed rape. That's over 17 million people. Nearly 1 million children are abused every year. Almost 15% of men in prison were abused as children. The U.S. is the biggest global warming polluter. That's where we live. Over 350,000 pigs are slaughtered every day in this country. Meanwhile, 1 billion of the 6 billion, that's 1/6, I'll do the math for you, 1 billion of the 6 billion people on this planet are going hungry. And we boast of our interconnectivity. Well, how does it feel to be connected to that? I could go on mining the internet and my library for figures that demonstrate the damage we've done to our planet, our fellow creatures, our families, and ourselves. But the problem with statistics is that they function on a pretty exclusively intellectual level. It's as if we think that by digesting the number, digesting the fact, that we have digested the problem. But in terms of functioning as a healthy creature, capable of the cosmically rare process of knowledge and emotion, and thereby capable, to some extent, of determining the healthfulness of our own evolution, we need another order of interface to fully live. We can't face our demons just by counting them. In other words, because we are spiritual beings as well as intellectual beings, the use of statistics to prove the point of our culpability in the production of pain and in the degradation of our ecological and social communities, and indeed of our very selves, just doesn't cut it. Statistics are clues and evidence, but not interface. So we will leave them behind. I mean, we already know that the planet is dying because of us. We know that children get hurt, that evil persists, that women have been abused, that animals die to feed our appetites, and that people die because they have no food. We know that we have been hurt. And we know that we have hurt others. We know it, and we so rarely face it. And we don't know how to live into it. So let me ease off the doom pedal for just a second. I'm going to present you with a picture of how the universe speaks through us, in hopes that in that picture is not a solution or a remedy necessarily, but at least a path. There's a guy named David Dutch, and he's an Oxford physicist who has written a book called The Fabric of Reality. I have not read this book, but I have heard him speak. He talks about the relationship between humans and a quasar, which is an unfathomably explosive stellar phenomenon. And he marvels that, and I'm quoting here, some bit of chemical scum, by that he means us, could accurately describe and model and predict and explain, above all, explain a quasar. The one physical system, the brain, contains an accurate working model of the other, the quasar. Not just a superficial image of it, but an explanatory model, embodying the same mathematical relationships and the same causal structure. So a quasar, and in theory the entire cosmos, is mirrored, at least potentially, in us. So Dutch goes on to conclude that we are a chemical scum that is different. This chemical scum has universality. Its structure contains, with ever-increasing precision, the structure of everything. And so we contain what we observe. But it's more than just information and mathematical models. It's like the difference between hearing and listening. Right? Hearing, at least for the purposes of this sermon, is about information. Listening, deep listening, is about being. Listening, deep listening, is a potential path out of denial. And as lovely as Dutch's idea is, his insight, well articulated with new metaphors, is not itself new at all. And you don't need the tools of science to come to it. So for instance, there is a story told in Islam about a mullah who traveled to the Grand Mosque in Mecca, the Kaaba. And after hours of meditation, the mullah fell asleep with his feet pointing to the Kaaba. And this enraged some of the Meccans. This is an insult. They woke him up and berated him for his sacrilege. Very well, said the mullah. Please take my feet and put them in a direction where Allah is not. The Meccans left him alone. Everywhere you turn is the face of Allah, says the Quran. So I see resonances between Dutch and this story. The mathematical models of all the cosmos are within us. The face of the cosmos, the face of God, if you will, is all around us. And in fact, these are the same things. Listening, deep listening, brings these things into our living. Let's stay in the Quran for a bit. Another verse from that text says, "And in the earth are signs for those whose faith is certain." Kamal Rahman is a Muslim mystic, and he expands on this, writing that the mystics, with their heightened consciousness, are eloquent in their expressions. The song of birds and the voice of insects are all means of conveying truth to the mind. In flowers and grasses are woven messages. In the rustling of leaves, there are specific instructions. At dawn, the breeze has secrets to tell. The mystics listen to the world very deeply. And here I am using the word listen a bit metaphorically. Chose listening rather than seeing, for instance, because the act and concept of seeing, to my mind, can so easily be superficial. Listening rather requires intention and real attending. This penetrates depths. And it is the depths of the unknown, the unknown within ourselves, that we are hoping to penetrate. Because ultimately, listening, be it to quasars or cousins, is listening to yourself. The secrets the dawn breezes reveal are about you. You are the cosmos. So listening and denial are mutually exclusive. And that's the connection here. We've already seen denial is pervasive. So we have some work to do. Listening, I believe, will reveal the unknown. Those aspects of our interconnectivity whose integrity is compromised. And because this compromised integrity is inevitable, Christians call this original sin, the only tool available for us is forgiveness. I believe that is the key. It's as one of our participants in our Wednesday night connection put it this past week. She pointed out that the first step toward compassion for others in the world is finding compassion for yourself. When you uncover your blind spots, when you reveal your denial by listening, treat yourself with compassion. Soften your heart and be kind to yourself. Forgive to move on and into life with courage and possibly, if not integrity, then at least self-awareness. Forgive. Be at peace. For giving peace to others. Now, you may find that your ability to forgive yourself increases your compassion for and reduces your gripping judgment of others. And you may find that this is less of a trajectory than a cycle. It's a never-ending process. And it is so because we are caught. We are human, flawed, and beautiful, capable of knowledge, and capable of forgiveness. And so, how do you forgive? I don't know. But I know of somebody who had a fair amount to say on the subject. Champion of forgiveness, lo and behold, from within our own cultural heritage. There's this guy named Jesus. He was from Nazareth. He talked about forgiveness some. So the direction, or the lesson, I should say, from the direct translation of the Koine Greek in the book of Mark, is that Jesus, or Joshua, as he's called in the text, actually did not grant forgiveness. He wasn't a superhero with the forgiveness power. He did not say, I forgive you. Rather, he merely from his unique perspective, was able to acknowledge forgiveness as though it were already present. He understood or noticed that people are forgiven. What he said, not is I forgive you. He said, you are forgiven. So this is still a story that is centered on this man Jesus, right? But it changes the quality of his effect. He's not a super-powered forgiveness hero. But he does have a presence. A presence, we are told, of grace and peace and mercy and healing. And so I might suggest that the lesson from this translation is that by listening to the world, because you are the world you listen to, with a presence of peace, grace, mercy, and healing, might be your first step into confronting your unknown. I'll refer again to Jamal Rahman, who writes, in the East, the lotus flower is a symbol of beauty and spirituality. Notice, teachers tell us, that the flower has a stem that roots in the mud. It is the mud of daily existence that feeds the root of the spiritual flower. So this gives me courage to face what I deny, what my culture, my family, and my experience have buried out of shame. So I stand here feeling as though I am on the edge of a precipice, for I have not done what I see needs to be done. And I don't know if I'm ready. But I will go forth with peace and grace and mercy and healing in my heart and forgiveness in my soul. And I pray the same for you.